All right, all right. Welcome to this episode of the Inflection Podcast. It's exciting today to have here with me Anthony Sarandrea. He's one of the foremost recognized customer generators in the world, specialization in the insurance and financial services space. Anthony recently went through an acquisition by MediaAlpha and now focused on serving businesses as a VC. Thank you so much for hopping on board, Anthony.
Of course, brother. Happy to be here.
Let's get it. So one of the interesting things about your story, and really every story that I like to dive into, is origin story, the why behind it all, and yeah, you
Yeah.
could unpack it a little bit. We're here today, acquisition to Media Alpha, part of one of the biggest VCs, you're on the advisory board, one of the biggest VCs in Arizona. But let's go back a little bit to origin story. Did you always know to be a VC? And yeah, how did you get to this point?
Yeah. No, I think honestly, it sounds funny because today, like freedom of time is, or being able to work from home is like very abundant. But I had a normal 9 to 5 job, and on a lunch break, I went to the gym to get a workout in, and I saw some older gentleman like being there, and he was like always there midday. And I asked him what he did, and I loved basketball. I still do. Excuse me. I think it's the best sport in the world. But and he's shooting hoops all day. And I said, "What do you do?" Said, "I work on the internet." I said, "I don't know what that means, but I'd like to do that because I want to be able to shoot hoops midday." So that's my like initial motivation. It was literally to be able to take a break from work and be able to shoot hoops, which again, today from work from home doesn't like that's most people, but it wasn't going back whatever 12, 15 years ago. And then I'll say a little bit more, maybe hit a little more home with some people point for me. The other second motivation was I had a boss that wasn't the nicest guy on the planet, and that made my quality of life tough, right? Which is really an unhappy guy. And of course, projecting that on me. And I'd call my brother in the bathroom crying. This is right when I graduated college. I'd be sick to my stomach. I'd literally be throwing up in the bathroom. Just like, man, this is just not a good environment. And I remember one day it clicked with me. Like my little brother's been my best friend my whole life. I just remember thinking to myself, like, oh shit, when he graduates college, he's going to have the same experience. And that was enough pain for me. I'm getting the chills as I say that. I've told the story 100 times. It's enough pain for me. It was, excuse me, to want to do something more, do something different. I think for me, I've always used pain more, right, than pleasure, right? Okay, go buy a Lamborghini. Like you get excited, you'll work hard. But if I say your family's not going to eat if you don't fucking earn more, you're gonna earn more. You know what I mean? So using those pains, and sometimes now I have to make some artificial ones up as well in my head to play a game with myself in order to drive like full bought in motivation. But that was really my first motivation into entrepreneurship, really, if you will.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And it makes me think of the carrot versus the stick approach. But you even flip it by saying you got to use the stick on yourself.
Yeah,
Pain, the motivation
100%.
uh, on that end. You guys were featured on the Ellen DeGeneres show. My
Yeah.
goodness, like what was that like? Even was that a long process to get on, or was that a fluke thing that just fell into place and you were in
Yeah,
planning for that?
you'll laugh at it's timing with everything, right? And it's we tried to get on the show, trying to get on the show tonight us. And then she actually had, I don't know if you remember, like an allegation with her like employees, like someone was like, Ellen's really mean, or I forget whatever the allegation was. And like after a year worth of staying on this thing, on even getting no, finally like they're like, hey, you want to come on the show? Like they were open to it at that point because like they had so many sponsors and people drop out. And I think it's a really great lesson just because we did get told no so many times and we just kept sticking with it. And then just like everything in life, timing, something changes and could be in a moment's notice and everything shifts. So yeah, that's the story of our company being featured on that show and whatever tangible lesson could come out of that. I was always present. I was always present, ready for it. And then when it happened, we were able to jump on it fast.
Amazing, man. It makes me think of the concept of increasing your luck surface area. You got to
Yeah.
shoot a lot of shots and stay with it. We're going to be like,
So,
wow, you're so lucky. You got on the Ellen show. How many no's did you get?
oh my God, we were talking to Red
Sticking
Table
with it.
Talk. We're talking to Steve Harvey. We were all over the map trying to get it down. Yeah, you're exactly right. That was not the only combo we were having.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Another thing that I think about, like the space you're in is a very competitive space. So the company you sold, right, to Media Alpha, going through that acquisition, like That's a very tough market. Your team collectively have driven like thousands of invite calls across several verticals: health, finance, legal, and many more. And the numbers, right, about over 1 million customers annually generated. And then to sell something like that, what does that even look like? Was that a crazy pivot for you and just saying, you know what, it's time to sell? Or did that come knocking and wear you down pretty much? Are you like, okay, yeah, whatever, we're done?
Yeah, I think a couple things in just the business progression. So we started a internet marketing agency, which was a for service, right? Hired us X thousands per month or hundreds per month to manage people's ad spend. So we really got paid to play with other people's money. I know that sounds really blunt, but that's what was happening, which is really cool. So we got to learn on someone else's dime and get paid to do it, which I think is pretty badass. So I always tell people, think about where's there like a no lose? Like we were getting paid to learn. There's no chance I could lose there. Like there was no risk for me. So that's how the business started. I did a sales script one day where I said, hey, everyone charges a percent of ad spend in my space or their pricing model. I tried to re-engineer it and align it more with the customer. So I said, how about we do a flat fee plus a percentage of profit? People loved it because there was alignment there. So the second lesson there was like, how can you create alignment between your customer? My team came back and said, how are you gonna validate the profit percentage? And I said, we're not. It's a great sales script. Like I'm never gonna know how much profit they're actually making. If they pay us, great. If not, like we're making deals, we're closing. So I remember going to the mail and getting like a 20 something $1,000 check. And I remember calling the customer and being like, hey, your controller messed up. Do you want me to just rip up the check? And they said, oh, that's your commission from last quarter. And I was like, oh, I'm hooked on this. So it was a good hybrid into productizing the service, which is essentially what we did. And you can do that in any service business as well too. So that's all we did. We productized the service. So we started selling customers or phone calls or leads or enrollments versus percent of ad spend or management fees. And honestly, we were doing the same, in some ways, less work, but because we de-risked it from the customer, meaning I put up the ad spend, my website, my ads, and I got paid every time that they enrolled a customer, signed someone up. They had no risk. I'm a commission only salesperson. Meanwhile, I can scale and get more margin and have less of a headache than managing the customer because they're asking me for reports all the time. And I've got my fixed fee in there and there's no scale. If I do better, great. But if I do okay, they'll keep me around. Like it's this game of try not to get fired versus trying to like really like scale the moon. That was the pivot in the business. And that was over 3 years. That was not an overnight thing. And then as far as the sale of the business, you'll laugh. I like doing a lot of personal development stuff. Whoever's listening to this podcast fits into that same category. I know you're the same. I remember listening. Someone said, talk to investment bankers because they have good access to deal flow. And I had no idea what that was, but I'm just like I'm a hungry entrepreneur as an investment banker, write it down. Cool. So I reached out to a few investment bankers, having no idea what it is. And they start going, hey, you could sell your business as I tell them about the business. And I'm like, sure. How much are you going to charge me to do this? And they said, you know, it's a percentage of the sale. It's anywhere from 1% to 3% of the sale, depending on the size of the business. And I said, okay. So I went through the entire process thinking I'm getting a free education. I'm like, this business is not sellable. I'm getting a free education. It's going to be awesome. I set aside time for that. And lo and behold, until that money actually got wired into my account, did I not actually believe it was real. I thought I was really getting a relatively cheap or free education, which was how I framed it and looked at it. I didn't go through the exit because I hated the business or because this was an opportunity to get rich or because I was tired of it. It was like purely like from an educational standpoint, which I know is funny to say.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's crazy. When I think through what you said about productizing your service, that's a blueprint that many service-based businesses try to do. And it's really hard. So let's break it down, like just maybe in 3, 4 steps. So the first thing you did was obviously identify opportunity and execute like crazy. So you built up loyal customer base.
Yeah.
And then you figured out what aspects of the business you could automate, package, would you say?
Yeah, I'd say first thing was I really had just none of this is rocket science, which is great. I just over delivered. If I was getting paid $10, I delivered $12 worth of value. If I get paid $100, I deliver $120 worth of value. And what that looks like is just like working extra hours than I'm billing for, or doing something that's outside of my scope of job. And I just did that in my W-2 job. And I started getting side projects. And my side projects, I started doing that in my side projects. And then I started getting referred. And my internet marketing agency, I never spent a dime in marketing, which is so funny. A marketing agency never spent a dime in marketing. No, it was all referral based because I just over delivered on what I was doing. So I don't care if you're a janitor right now, like that principle is so easily applicable. You just over deliver. If you're supposed to clean the kitchen, go clean the bathroom too. Like just over deliver. And eventually you create what you just said, which is raving fans or loyal fans or people that will refer you or they'll pay you more or that you're more sticky and loyal. And then as far as the pivot for the productization, I would say there's two things that I got. I don't know if you ever have any lessons in your life that someone older, more wise or mature tells you and you hear it, but you don't
Yes.
listen. You heard,
Yeah.
but you didn't listen. And for me, Nisha, like stick with just go deep. If you're going to be a marketer, just do it for dentists or whatever it was. And I kept hearing that. I kept going, that's nice. That's nice. That's nice. But I never did that. And that and productization are two things that like I kept hearing in my head that that took me a long time to actually execute on. And I think there's a part of being realistic that's important, right? Like I shouldn't have fired all my customers and then just worked with dentists if I were to niche down. I shouldn't have got rid of all my service contracts and productized. But I certainly, which I ended up doing eventually, but I certainly should have worked a little bit harder to spend a little bit more energy into just the dental niche again, as an example, where I should have when I got a new lead in, I should have just tried to productize it a little bit more. So I really like that don't quit your day job kind of approach where, okay, I should productize a niche.
Yeah.
Screw, I'm not taking on any new customers that is service based and that they're in an industry I'm not going to specialize in. That's BS. That's impossible really, because you need to keep the lights on it depending on the stage you're in. But as soon as you're somewhat comfortably out of that survival stage, and that to me, survival stage was being able to pay my bills at that point. Like I
Yeah.
should have been sooner trying to niche and productize just a little bit, dipping my toes in when I got a new lead, just try and productize it. If I were going to go to a networking conference, I should have just gone to a dental conference in this silly example versus a generic marketing conference or something like that. So that's how I would suggest moving that pivot.
And that's helpful and very tactical as well. I appreciate it. As you grow the business, like what is one key challenge for you that was particular pain in the neck to walk through? Or
It's a good
you?
one. No,
Yeah.
what's a good? Yeah, I would say I'll go learning lessons. I don't know why I've blocked out any bad, like maybe it's PTSD or maybe I just rewrite it to be a positive. But for me, like learning lessons is, if you were 100% confident that you were going to be successful, how differently would you operate? Meaning, if I remember I made a mistake with a customer and I tried to cover it up versus taking full ownership and saying, that's my bad. I'm sorry. I'll refund you or I'll do this versus being like, no, oops, that was a misunderstanding. When it was like, in hindsight, like it would have been the best relational sale in the world had I said, I raised my hand and I messed up. And that's one thing. Two would be giving equity to my team. So when I sold the business, I had a 25% minority partner, but I did not give equity to my team. And I remember my friends or my rich friends said, whoa, you sold for a big number. That's sweet. My wealthy friends, next level, looked at me like I was an idiot. And I said, why? Not because I sold, but you own too much. I would tell them how much of the company I owned, and they'd say, you're an idiot. And I said, why? And they're like, well, you could have incentivized your team and you would have sold for much more. And so that's one thing in my new business and businesses. I definitely learned that lesson to not do that again, is to incentivize my team with equity. So those are two learning lessons that I'd say that the latter of the two might be a little bit more. And then the last thing I'll say actually is, and this is counterintuitive, and of course, like if you're watching, so easy for you to say right now, but not sacrificing your health, sleep, family as much as most entrepreneurs do. And there's this whole drive around sleep when you die, grind, work 90 hours a week. And don't get me wrong, I work my shit off. I do it today. I don't even have to work another day in my life. And I work my ass off. I work all the time.
Yeah.
But I consistently am monitoring my work. Am I working out every day? Am I sleeping enough hours? I'm not perfect. Trying to get better at it. Am I spending enough time with my family,
Yeah.
my friends, things like that? And again, I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I've got it all figured out, but I'm certainly more deliberate than waking up at 7 a.m., working till 9 p.m. and maybe taking a break to work out. When it's just like, it's not, I would happily, with what I know now, would happily trade 40% of my wealth, 50% of my wealth if I took 2 more hours a day for the last 10 years to spend time on my health and family and stuff like that. And I think that's one thing
Wow.
that's easy to say in hindsight. And of course, easy to say right now, because I don't have that opportunity to get that time back and write a check and do it.
Oh man, lots of good nuggets in there. And I see you have a scholarship for high school, Catholic high school in Arizona. So it's pretty amazing. you actually hit the nail on the head. I was going to ask advice, recommendations, and you rolled right into that. So that's fantastic. Yes. Thank you so much, Anthony. Been a pleasure. We're going to add links to the show notes for your site. And whenever your business is live, we'll update the show note with that and other places folks can engage with you online. Appreciate it, brother.